Welcome back to another episode. I am Sticks. I am here with my co-host and best friend D-Lo, and we are, pardon my wisdom. We got some really good topics today. A couple of updates from some topics, but we got some really good topics today. But first, before we get into the episode, please go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe up. It's free, don't cost you no money. Just go ahead and support the channel.
Yep.
What we got today, D-Lo?
Yeah, on the topics, for our topic today, as you mentioned, some updates. We'll update the Ime Udoka scandal in Boston. We'll talk about NIL issues and Coach Prime and his interview with EYL, Earn Your Leisure, if you're not familiar. And then we'll talk about Tua Tagovailoa's head injury and how that was handled. So should be some good topics to talk about today.
For sure, man. For sure, man. Before we get into that, though, man, how was your week, bro? How was everything going on? What you got going on, man?
So the week was that it ended kind of weird just because we were in place because of Hurricane Ian. So we was getting a bunch of little rain and tropical storms rolling through here. But then it's also the first week of October, and everybody in this household loves the Halloween fall season, but me. I don't like Halloween, so like I'm kind of like the Scrooge of Halloween right now. But there, everything's good. As always, no complaints from this end. What about you, man? How's everything for you?
Man,
How was your week?
Everything is cool, man. You know, the week was, pretty cool. Last week of the month for as far as sales and everything. So I was just grinding in that aspect. Sam was sick this weekend, so I didn't get a chance to see her, but she's recovering. She's good. She ain't had COVID or nothing like that, but she just had a little stomach bug, so just kind of stayed and rested at the crib. So I kind of been on my own this weekend, just, of course, working on the podcast, doing my streaming thing and gaming and stuff like that. So now we here, man. But the week was good, man. The week, like I said, it ended on the fast pace just because of the sales. But other than that, we chilling, man. We chilling.
Yeah. So are you you like Halloween? You get into the festivities of Halloween and whatnot?
I'm like you, bro. I'm like you, bro. I don't care. I mean, I kind of get into the Christmas season, but the Halloween season and the fall season, the pumpkin spice and all that.
Okay. Now I like pumpkin spice and all that shit. I like that stuff, what I'm talking about. But I just don't. I don't like Halloween. It was kind of inherited from my mom. She doesn't like Halloween, so I didn't like Halloween. She don't like cats. I don't like cats, and it's like the opposite for my daughter and my wife. My son, he's obviously too young to really know right now, but if he hangs around his mom long enough, he's gonna like Halloween too. Yeah, so
sure.
I'm gonna be the only one in the house. It's like, all right, y'all have at it. Yeah.
Excuse me, y'all go chill. But nah, I ain't really into the holiday season. Well, not the holiday season, but the fall Halloween.
The fall
season.
stuff. Yeah.
I ain't got nothing decorated. I don't care, bro. I don't.
Yeah. Oh man, listen, my whole yard's gonna be full with Halloween stuff. But anyway, man, let's get right into it. So, part 2 of the Ime Udoka scandal. More information has come out to kind of bring some clarity to it, if you can say that, but it's still a bit foggy of what actually has gone on, and if Boston has been transparent with why he was actually suspended. So this week, the Boston or more news comes out about Ime Udoka, and I want to say the woman that's involved is more clear now. Also, how the scandal came about, and how it was discovered, and then also what was once being said to be consensual, was it really consensual? Sticks, what's up, man?
Well, so Boston is still handling this the wrong way. They're still like holding a lot of information in, and it's still like being real, like behind the scenes and in the shadows with all this information. It don't make no sense to me because people are always going to speculate, and if they were so upset about, if Brad Stevens was so upset last week about people putting the women involved and who it was and who it wasn't, is that the third? Then just go ahead and just bring the information out. Like, why are you piecemealing all of this information to the people? It don't make no sense to me. But for the people who don't know, and me and D-Lo are actually at odds on something right now. Like I still think, and that's weird. For this is a PMW first that
Yeah.
me and him ain't really on the same page, but I still think the relationship was consensual. He was just saying some wild shit. So, so
Yeah, yeah,
what
yeah,
do you
yeah.
what do you think, bro? What do you think?
I'm not saying it was still. I'm not saying it was not consensual. I'm just saying now knowing what we know about the crude language that he used,
Mm-hmm.
and then the relationship to come about after that is kind of weird. Because the articles, you read some of the articles, it says he used his power over her to, kind of will her into that, into, into that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just now it's up in the air to me. I still don't like think he should be the only one that's suspended,
Agreed on
b-
that for sure.
but it's again, it brought some clarity to the situation of why he was suspended the way he was, but still
Mm-hmm.
it's a bit unclear as to how all this really transpired and what really happened for him to have the suspension that he has right now in place. And then
Agreed.
there's some other things that we'll get into later in this segment
Facts.
about with this whole thing.
Yeah. So the way I feel is that I think up front it was consensual and it was respectful, and they were going through this whole situation in the beginning. Like,
Mhm,
but as the relationship went on, that's when the unwanted and crude language came about. Like, say for instance, he he propositioned her, or they propositioned each other with this situation, right?
mhm.
They went
Let's get
about
it
and
in.
they went about and did the grown up things a couple of times,
Yep.
and now Udoka now feels real comfortable with the
Mhm.
situation,
Yep.
and now he come out saying, "I want to, two in the pink, one in the stink," type. You know what I'm saying? Like that. Now he's saying stuff. now he's now, now he's saying stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
now
yeah.
all of a sudden he getting too comfortable. Now he wilding out. That's what I think
He's
it was. I think, you know what I'm saying?
he's
I
saying
think
this stuff in the workplace or via text. How is he saying this? Am
he
I
he pro-
so
so if it was through text, we probably would already have seen receipts by now. He probably saying this joint face to face, honestly, because like
in
there's
the
no
in the
way
workplace?
in the workplace. Yeah, 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 and that's why, like I said, I agree with you. I agree he should have been suspended. I
Yeah.
agree he should have. I don't agree in the length of the suspension. I don't think it should have been
Mhm.
the full season and then a full another investigation after the suspension is over. I don't believe it. I don't think that's the case.
And so,
And
not to
yeah,
cut you off, but that
yeah.
is why I still feel like there's more to come.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
the Celtics, I can't tell or decipher if they're trying to protect Udoka's reputation or if they're trying to protect
It's
their
definitely the woman.
reputation.
It's the
No,
woman
no,
in the
not the
organization.
woman.
It's the
No,
woman in the.
not the woman.
You
The
don't think it's the woman at
organization.
all? But
I
if it's not the woman, then why won't they name her?
So I think it's the organization. We've seen this multiple times. We've seen this story multiple times. Sticks is a
Yeah,
man of power has an improper relationship with some woman. They don't care what they don't really care about that woman. They'll throw her name out there as
that's
quick as
true.
something. So I
That's true.
think I think it's the organization, but then that just brings the that brings like they're using their power over Udoka
Facts.
um, and the woman to like basically keep their name as an organization intact. And then that's where I'm just like, they're all messed up right now.
Yeah,
This
it
whole
is all
situation is so muddy but clear at the same time.
very,
It
very
just doesn't
muddy,
make
bro.
sense.
And it's crazy because you mentioned they using their power over Udoka and the young lady, but the whole situation. So ESPN reported that the power dynamic was the
Hmm.
primary finding and policy violation cited that Udoka did, using his
Hmm.
power over the young lady to have this relationship. But
Yep.
now, top down, the
Yep.
organization is now using their power against Udoka,
Hmm.
and really like they're definitely not trying to. They're not trying to keep his reputation at all. They're fucking his reputation up 100%.
Yep.
But like you said, it to me that I don't know why they just won't name her, but they're just trying to. I'm gonna go your route with that because I agree with you. They're trying to keep their reputation higher than anything else because the way Matt Barr is talking, bro. This joint is if bruh,
Yeah, and Matt
if
Barnes just keeps
yeah,
going on these on I won't say he went on his social media feed again, but he has gone on done interviews about this
Mm-hmm.
situation once again, and he continues to say that it's going to be ugly, and Udoka won't be able to coach in the league once it all comes out. Why
Yeah,
won't they just let it all come out? Or why? I mean, I know it's probably not his place or any other professional in that industry's place to say anything about it, but why they just won't let it all come out and
exactly.
clean it up where they have to clean it up? Because again, as we said last week when we first talked about Udoka in this whole situation, until it's all out, all the speculation is gonna keep coming, and it's gonna take a left turn somewhere, and then that's when you get
Mm-hmm.
down the avenue of no, that's not. You have to clean up even more than what you would have had to clean, where you just came out with all the information outright.
Exactly, because the way Matt Barnes is talking, he was like, "It's not what he did. I guess it's about who he did it with."
Mm.
So, but
It makes me wonder if he really knows, or if anybody really knows. To be honest
I
with
think
you,
Matt Barnes knows way more than he's putting out. He just can't
okay,
say what he want to say, but I think he knows at least 90% of the story, bro. At least. Because he
yeah,
keeps going on talking about it. Because initially he defended him,
yeah,
but then immediately, like minutes after, deleted that tweet and went on video and was
hmm
like, hey, as a matter of fact, listen, this shit is uglier than I thought, my guy. So
right,
I can't defend my boy. So he knows more about what he thinks. Because he also said if anything goes any further, the revelations that could come about could flip the game upside down. If everything comes out, it could get extra hot in the kitchen for Udoka. That's what he said on Vlad TV.
yeah.
So he knows a lot more than what he's putting on, bro. He just needed somebody just need to come out and just say what's going on
Yeah.
because
I mean,
everybody is lost, bro.
with all of the burner accounts and all that stuff, somebody needs to go on their burner account and just let it all out.
I mean, shit, Kevin
Whether it
Durant
be
need to go ahead and do
Udoka,
it. All the burners he got, let
you know what
KD
I'm
do it.
saying?
Shit, fuck
Yeah,
it.
whether it's Udoka does it, Nia Long, who we have not really even touched on
Haven't heard
her
anything from
her
her,
part of
dog.
it, or heard anything. Well, she did release a statement, but it wasn't much to
It
it.
wasn't much, yeah.
But we haven't even touched her point of view of this whole situation. Somebody just needs to say, listen, this is what happened from a burner account. If they don't want to be the main source, but this is what happened. This is what's going to happen, and this is why he has been suspended. Because I mean, even a week later, to me, for what has happened and what we know, crude language, consensual relationship, him to be suspended for a year is still just. It seems like a bit much to me. And on top of the fact that he's going to lose half of his pay is going to be cut too. So
Mm-hmm.
you suspend him for the year, you take half of his, or you take a portion of his salary, which understandable for taking
Understandable.
his salary. He's not going to be coaching. I get that.
Mm-hmm.
But then you also have it hanging in the balances if he's going to be the coach for you next year or not. I mean, like I said last week, just fire him if you
Just
need to do
fire
all
him.
of that.
Just let him go, bro. Just let him go. And then I'm glad you touched on that about him even possibly even being the coach next year because Mr. Grossbeck, the
Hmm.
partial owner of the team, comes out and says they will not stand in the way of him seeking other coaching opportunities.
So that to me, that means he's fired. I'm just be honest with you.
Honestly, I agree. I agree. But the thing that fucks me up is that what other team with all this looming in the balance is going to even consider him without any clarity about what's going on in the situation?
That's a good question. Somebody will though. If we're being honest, somebody will because of what he did in his first year as the head coach of the Boston Celtics and how they went from being when they first started the first half of the season, they were what, out of the playoff
I think
picture.
they were out of the play. I think they were below 500, and then the second half of the season they went crazy.
They caught fire and made it to the NBA finals. So somebody will give him a chance, I believe. But yeah,
I think
I'm
so.
with you. It needs to be some clarity, or what's going to happen is other organizations as well as Boston are just hoping that the media and the public just says, okay, we don't know what happened, which is not going to happen,
It's not gonna
but
happen.
they just forget about it and he can come back, hush hush and just go
Mm-hmm.
about his business. But as soon as he comes back to any organization, that media storm is going to come back around and saying,
Facts.
well, whatever happened.
I mean, but I do agree with you that the way he did in the first year speaks volumes to the type of coach he is.
Mhm.
But depending on it's so much hidden information from the Boston Celtics that they have to bring some kind of clarity, because if it's something that's crazy that he did, like grape or
Yep.
SA, you know what I'm
Yep.
saying? Like,
Yep.
then ain't no organization taking him.
Yeah.
Period.
No
You know what I'm
doubt. And
saying? But
he
if it's
should
it, yeah,
he should
he
serve
shouldn't
some
be
time
taken.
too, honestly.
Facts. But if it's something as, I want to call it small because it's not small. But if it's something that's, if it's just the consensual relationship,
Mhm.
then I agree with you. Somebody will definitely give him a chance, being the type of coach that he is. But
Right.
they have to clarify before any other team gives him a chance. They have to clarify, because it can't be anything crazy for another team to be like, all right, cool, Udoka, we got you. You're the head
Right.
coach of the Chicago Bulls. Because if
Right.
he has some kind of SA situation, any allegations
Mhm.
like that going on, ain't nobody taking him, bro. Period.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Ain't
mean,
nobody taking him.
but if you go off of just what we heard from Matt Barnes, then it'll all come out, and he's definitely not going to have any type of
No way.
profession in the NBA or anywhere for that matter
Mhm.
after the fact. But I mean,
Nah,
listen,
facts.
I know Pop taught us that revenge and a piece of you know what is the sweetest joy, but we as men gotta stop putting ourselves in these situations.
That's so fat.
You know what I mean? And for for the youngins that may
I
listen
ain't
to
no
this and
killer, but
don't
don't push me.
you know what I'm saying? For the youngins that don't understand what I'm saying, go back to listen to Hail Mary, Machiavelli album,
You know
Tupac,
what's crazy, Lo? I
and
was
you'll
about
see.
to wear my Poetic Justice Tupac T-shirt
Yeah,
today, but I couldn't find it. I was like, yo, then you brought it up. That's funny. But nah,
yeah, yeah.
that definitely makes a point in this situation for sure.
Yeah, we gotta stop putting ourselves in these situations, and that comes from my wife, which is ironic because I talked to her about a lot of stuff, and she
Mm-hmm.
was like, "Yeah, men just put themselves in situations that they shouldn't be in." And I'm like,
I swear. And it's
"Yeah,
all because it's all temptation and lack of self-control. That's
self
all it
control."
is. It's
Yeah,
lack of self-control and giving in to temptation. That's all it is, man. Shout out to Stacy for that, yo. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like, she got a point. Shout out to her for that. Because
yeah,
it's definitely the truth, man. We got to stop giving in to the temptation to have a little bit more self-control in ourselves, especially whenever you have a fiance, a beautiful fiance, a
mm-hmm,
family, a
mm-hmm,
career.
mm-hmm.
Why would you put yourself in that situation to lose all of that? It
To
don't make
lose
no
it all,
sense, bro. To lose
to lose
all of
it
that.
all, and we've
For
seen it
just for
happen
a,
multiple times.
yeah, just for a piece of cheeks. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Hey, I like that.
go just for a piece of cheeks. Like, you can go home and get that, my boy. Like,
You know,
got
hey,
Neil Long in the crib. What the fuck did you do? Like, come
but
on, bro.
okay, well, let's cover that
All
real
right, go
quick.
ahead,
And I know this
I
is
don't know
not going
why.
to come
I
because
know.
I think you know what I'm about to say.
Go ahead, go ahead,
Uh,
go ahead.
and this is probably not going to be received very well, but still, like Jay-Z cheated on Beyonce, probably the baddest thing walking. Who else got?
Supposedly,
Yeah,
allegedly.
suppose allegedly. There you go,
Yeah,
allegedly.
yeah.
Um, Nia Long just got cheated on.
Chris Brown was beating up on Rihanna.
Well, we didn't have
He
to
cheating
say
on
that.
everybody. He been cheating on everybody.
Yeah.
But
So I
Rihanna is
mean,
said to be one of the most beautiful women in the world.
right. So I
You know what I'm
mean,
saying?
long story short is, somebody can just because of how the public views a person, when you actually are
Mm-hmm.
with them, they could
It
be a
could be
totally
different.
different person. And then
Agreed.
they also could be like people get tired of people too. Like to be married for as long as some people some like older generations have been married, you have these 60 and 50 and 60-year marriages. That's rare, but you have to
Super rare.
really
Yeah.
you have to really love somebody and want to work on a relationship. And right now we have too much access to other individuals that we didn't have access to in 20 years ago, 30 years
Facts.
ago. We didn't have
That's
access to these
facts.
individuals. Now we can get on our phone and see a beautiful woman or a beautiful man that lives 6,000 miles away and start a conversation.
That's a fact. That's a
So
fact.
I mean,
Yeah. I mean, like you said, but she probably, if he looking outside of his engagement, yeah,
mhm,
outside of his relationship, it's something she won't doing at home. But
right.
at the same time,
They were apart too. They
they
didn't live
were apart
together
because
together.
she was still in LA, he was in Boston.
Yeah,
She was in the process of moving, which we'll talk
moving.
about as well. But
Mhm.
that still don't mean, bro, like that you got to give into that temptation. I'm with Stace on this, man. I'm with sister-in-law on this, bro. You got to just stop putting yourself in a situation. You don't have to give into that. You don't have to have
Yeah,
that situation
100.
going on, bro. I don't care what kind of power you got. I don't care what type of money you got. I don't care who you are in this organization. Don't give into the temptation, bro. That shit don't make no sense, bro. Don't make no sense
So that's your final thought on this? Don't give into the temptation.
on that
What's your final
situation.
thought? Okay, yeah.
Well,
So how?
we still got to talk about the ring camera, bro. We ain't
Oh,
brought that up yet.
oh.
So Kevin Frazier, who is a host of Entertainment Tonight, he tweeted
Mm-hmm.
that multiple sources confirmed that the female staffer that is being implicated in this situation with Udoka was uncovered by her husband after he overheard a private conversation on his ring camera. So
Dummy.
my mind automatically goes to, what did he hear? Because
Right.
I was thinking to myself, like, she walked up to the door, like, girl.
Yeah. Or did she duck out? Did she like get a call? You know how when you with your significant other, well, I should not how you I shouldn't say you know how, but you've seen these situations where you're with your significant other and you get a call from whoever you messing with
Whoever.
or want to mess with or a text and you duck out and say, "Yo, what's up?" Yeah,
Oh, like you
okay.
think she went outside to the front door and he.
Yeah.
What I think happened, well, it could be one of two things. What I think happened
We
was
don't know for sure.
she was coming back. She was
Yeah.
coming back from her consensual relationship. And
Yeah.
she on the
Yeah.
phone with her homegirl, like, girl, that boy Ime done blew my girl.
But why
Listen,
would
that
you say that on the front door though? Like, why you can't say that in the
it's
car or
dumb.
like when
It's
you walk
dumb
out of
anyway.
it? Like,
It's dumb regardless.
yeah,
Like she shouldn't have been talking about this in front of her. You live there. You know there's a ring camera. You know it records
you
everything. As soon as
know it.
there's motion in front of that motherfucker, it's gonna record.
Yeah.
So you
That's why I
have to
said
understand
dumb.
that. But it was dumb. But she probably was like ducking out, like, hey, what's going on? Like, I'm gonna meet you tonight. I'm gonna meet you tonight, type shit. Like it could have been either
Right.
way. But
That's
that's how
crazy.
this that's really all of the new news, because
Yeah.
that's how this was really found out, because the husband found out through this ring camera conversation. Like, why? Shaq is happy because Shaq invested millions into this motherfucker. So Shaq is happy that
Oh,
his
ring.
yeah,
Yeah.
he is happy as hell
And
that
Nas.
his
Nas invested in
Nas
ring
too.
as
I didn't know
well.
Nas though. I know
Yep.
Shaq did for sure, but I
Yep.
know he is happy as fuck. He was like, "Yo, my investment doing this job, I'm about to make so much money, bro. Like, I'm about
Right.
to make so much money because it's so stupid. It's so stupid. Like,
Yeah.
girl, this nigga, he made
She
him
better
blew
not
my
have said that.
mind. Yeah, no, facts,
She,
facts.
yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
girl, girl, I'm
Yeah.
telling you, you might want to be the next one for this consensual relationship, girl, because he got that
Chill.
thing.
Chill. Chill. Yeah.
but nah, yeah. It's all crazy. And oh, did you hear about the situation where the woman that he was having a affair with was also in conversation with Nia Long, helping her plan her move?
So that yes, yeah. So again, it's a lot of stuff that has come out that has cleared up this whole situation a bit, and then there's some that's still unclear because I keep seeing conflicting stories about who the staffer actually is. Now that has been consistent though, is she's
Mm-hmm.
the travel planner or whatnot. But I've seen others. Again, I don't get into that portion of the allegations because I try to I
Keep the
don't.
women's names
I
out
try
of
to
it.
keep
Yeah,
the
yeah.
names out of it, especially
Try
if it's
not to
not
be.
clear.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
it's just,
It's a
man,
lot
I
going. But see, none of this would be going on if Boston would just be more clear
cleared
with the
up.
information, bro. Just
Yeah,
clear it the fuck up. There's no reason why, if you like I said last week, if you put in Udoka on Front Street, there's no reason why you can't name this young lady either. Because just like you said earlier in this segment, she is disposable. So
right.
why are you worried about not?
Well,
You know what I'm saying? Like they don't like
yeah,
you said, they
yeah,
don't care. Like they can hire her, they can fire her and hire somebody just like her tomorrow. You know what I'm
right.
saying? So if that's the case, but if it is the VP's wife, then that has something to do with it too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's a lot going on, man. So much speculation, bro, that we don't have all the information about. And I don't, just like D'Lo said, I don't like to speculate either if I don't have all of the facts. But bruh, just Boston, come out with the
Clear it
info,
up.
bruh. Clear it the
Clear it
fuck
up.
up. There's no reason why
Yeah.
y'all still holding on to this information. It don't make no sense.
Yeah.
None.
If they clear it up, I think this situation it'll some firestorms will come around it for maybe a week or two, and just like everything else, it'll die down and we're moving on to the next story.
That's a fact. That's a fact. What's your final thoughts on that?
Exactly what I said. They clear it up. If they clear it up, some firestorm will come around it and we'll move on to the next story, and something new I'm sure will come up, and we'll have a lot to say about that as well.
That's a
Not
fact.
just us,
That's
the
a fact.
media and the public.
Yeah, well, hopefully they do clear it up, man. They need to ASAP.
Yeah. All right. So our next story, we're talking about Coach Prime again. My man, Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, Jackson State. He was on an interview with Earn Your Leisure, who right now I listen to that podcast
I do
and their
too.
products all the time. And he was on a interview with them, and he was talking about the NIL and how he agrees with it, but the way that things are handled right now is not good for the game or good for college sports in general. So again, let's talk about what the NIL is first and foremost. Give you some background on that, and then we can get into the comments that Deion made in this interview, and then in some articles that he was a part of, or his Twitter post. I'm sorry, his Twitter post from back in May. So the NIL is short for name, image, and likeness, which it was a rule that was passed a year ago, as of July 21st, that allowed college athletes to get compensated for their name, image, and likeness. Before that, they could not profit off of their name, image, and likeness whatsoever. The only thing that they received for being student athletes at these respective universities was their scholarship, a stipend, and room and board. But with this rule that passed, they can now profit off of promotional endeavors such as endorsements, product endorsements, autograph signings, social media posts, and more. That and more is the gray area, but they can now profit off of their name. And then another thing to keep in mind with this as well, and this is the part that Coach Sanders and some other coaches, but we just know Coach Sanders has come out against this, is universities can't directly pay athletes.
Exactly.
It can only be like from brands or other individuals, other parties that are trying to promote products. Six. You saw the interview.
I did.
What were your thoughts on Coach Prime's comments? You want me to read some of the comments, or?
Well, so the one comment that I really put in here is that Coach Prime said it was really just a bunch of handsomely compensated boosters putting money in the pot that they're giving to the athletic department and telling the coach, hey, distribute this how you want to distribute it. You know what I'm saying? But the issue that he had with it is that where do you see these players doing anything other than playing ball?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But the issue is that they have to be just like you said, actually have to be endorsing something from a company endorsing something so that way they can profit off of their name, image, and likeness. But just like you said, they can't directly pay the students, but the coach is at some point taking that money that's in that pot and say, all right, cool, quarterback from Alabama, I give you 500K type. You know what I'm saying? Or I get this guy $1 million. I get, do something like that. But it's like you don't see these guys doing anything. The two players that he named was a quarterback from Alabama. I don't know why his name
Bryce Young.
Bryce Young, there you go. And then his son, Shador, that has a bunch of different sponsors actually, but nobody else is really endorsing anything to be able to profit from their name, image, and likeness. So like, how are they able to get compensated? You know what I'm saying? So it's just you go ahead and go into it because you got a little bit more information than me. I just
So I dove all the way into this one. Because both of us play collegiate sports. I also briefly coached collegiate sports, not as an actual coach, but I was a graduate assistant. But I was a part of that atmosphere, part of that industry for a while. So I completely get it. That to me, and to a bunch, players need to be compensated for their part in collegiate sports.
Mm-hmm.
Coach Prom says that in his current form, he is for players getting paid. All right.
Right.
But he said in his current form, just as you mentioned, there are some parties that are some boosters in these bigger schools that are pooling money together. They're actually called booster collectives,
Mm-hmm.
pulling money together and allowing these coaches to divvy out the money. Now, this is the thing that this is the problem that he has, because in recruiting, these bigger schools that have these pot of money, they can then say, all right, this is the money that we have. You want this player, go get him and pay him this much. And it's not actually the player going to the school because they want to go to that school and then they just happen to have an endorsement for a major brand. And it's more athletes that have endorsements than we think, but
100%.
there are some endorsements, quote unquote, that is like, what the hell is this?
Facts.
So Bryce Young, he has. Let me pull it up. Bryce Young, he has endorsement deals from Cash App.
Okay.
He also has trading card companies like Leaf, Wildcard, and Onyx, and that
Okay.
is accumulated to be over, or assumed to be over, $800,000 in profit for him.
Okay.
The highest paid female athlete, and I think this is going to be good. This name, image, and likeness, especially how we think of brands and products wanting the most eyes on their products as possible. I think
Mm-hmm.
for women athletes, and I hope this is not taken the wrong way, but I think for women athletes, especially if they're attractive, this is going to be um, a great law for them, a great
I
rule for
agree.
them.
I
But
agree.
Olivia Dunn, who is a gymnast from LSU, she
Mm-hmm.
makes over $1 million from one brand. It's an active wear brand, and I'm sure I'm gonna mess this name up, but it's called Vuori,
I never heard of it.
Vuory. Me either. Never heard of it. But she has over 8 million followers on both Instagram, together, cumulative, on Instagram and TikTok.
Okay.
8 million followers she has. So they signed her to over $1 million contract with them,
Mm-hmm.
endorsement deal. So she just posts information. She just makes posts on her social media sites and she gets paid for that. Another person that we'll talk about him later on
Mm-hmm.
that is benefiting from this is Mikey Williams,
Mikey Williams. Yep.
who is not even a college athlete yet, but he
Mm-hmm.
just pinned a 8-figure deal with Puma.
Mm-hmm. I didn't get
So
the figures, but I do know it was with definitely with Puma for sure.
yeah, so it's
Yeah.
an 8-figure deal that he has with Puma, and so Coach Prime doesn't have any issues with those type of endorsements.
Mm-hmm.
The issues that I think he may have a problem with are these type of endorsements, and I'm not going to name the schools, but you have schools um, that have deals for the whole football team to be paid $500 a month, and then some pools of money that is along with that payment that they can divvy out to recruits.
Mm-hmm.
You have position groups that can make $50,000 a year from a nonprofit organization. What nonprofit has that much money to just give out to college athletes?
Well, we
Just,
just did
no,
it.
just to be giving it out. They
Well,
typically
true, but
nonprofits
see,
say,
but in the sense of that, you know what I'm saying? I'm just gonna play devil's advocate for a second.
yeah,
In
okay,
the
I'm
sense of
glad.
that, in the sense of that, you do have some of these nonprofit organizations, because nonprofit means
Not for
nonprofit.
profit,
So
right?
you have to, what all the money that you bring in as far as revenue has to go back out.
Exactly,
So even if a small nonprofit organization makes 50,000 in a year, that 50,000 has to go somewhere. So that
exactly.
small nonprofit can give that money to NCCU and say,
hmm
"Hey, take this 50K and divvy it." You know what I'm
So let me
saying?
ask you this, Sticks. With what we know about most nonprofits, they can just give out $1.5 million a year.
No, 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 no,
Exactly.
no, no, no,
That's
no,
what
no,
I'm
no, no.
saying.
Hell
That's
no.
what I'm saying to you.
A lot of
That
yeah.
makes you scratch your head.
Nah, facts.
So it's like, okay, you telling me this nonprofit is just going to give offensive linemen, which is the position group,
Mm-hmm.
a $1.5 million a year just because they want an endorsement for what? I didn't. Now, I guess I should have dug a little bit deeper into that,
To what the endorsement
but
is. Mm-hmm.
what the endorsement is, but I just saw that and ran with it. That's,
Do
to
you
me, is
know who
like,
the nonprofit is?
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, okay, got you,
Yeah,
got
that's
you.
what I'm saying.
Yeah, because then we could have probably made a little bit more of a,
Right.
had a thought
Educated,
process
yes.
as to what the endorsement was about. But needless to say, there's not a lot unless you BLM that's just randomly spending $10 million in fucking real estate. But
Oh, here
there's
we
not a
go.
lot of there's not a lot of nonprofit organizations that have just 1.5 mil that they can just
Just to
throw
give
out for
out,
a year. No,
right? And
there's not
that's
a
what
lot
I'm
of
saying.
nonprofits.
And
Mhm.
that's where I was going with that. Now I'm sure if that's their business, nonprofit, that's what they want to do. That's what they want to do. And if that is legit, then it is legit. But to
Mhm.
me, if I'm coaches like Coach Prime, I'm like, that's
Don't make no sense.
strange.
It's very strange.
Um, so that and it just that's the issue that he has is that these Power Five schools, once again, we talked about this 2 weeks
Hmm.
ago as well, that they have this money that they can throw around to one win recruits, and then two pay athletes to stay because now the transfer portal is something major too.
Crazy.
Players are not happy at a situation or they're getting chirped at in their ear from another organization, which is illegal, but I'm sure it happens.
Hmm.
On the side, they can now go to these programs. And as we know, winning games brings in more money for not only you but your conference. And if your
Hmm.
conference is happy with you, SEC, Big Ten, you get all of these major television contracts, which brings in more money for you. So,
Exactly. And but another thing that he had a problem with too was you see all of these again Power Fives having all of this money that they can just all these well compensated boosters put money in this pot, but then what's good with the little guys? Basically, the
hmm
HBCUs. They don't
right,
have a lot of boosters that are well compensated to put all this money in the pot. He goes on to say that less than 10% of actual boosters and alums pour back into their schools at these smaller schools.
yeah,
I'm an alum of NCCU. I haven't poured any money back into that university, which
yeah,
I don't I kind of feel bad about, but not really because it's like I ain't got it, my boy. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
right,
I'm still trying to make, I'm still on the rise in my own life. So it's like,
right,
I don't really have much to pour back into you. I want to, but
right,
it's like, if I was one of these well compensated people, I would, go to the university and say, hey, what do y'all need? I don't think I would throw money into a pot. I would just, I'm going to, fix the stadium, or I'm going to get y'all some uniforms, or I'm going to fix the locker room or something like that. You know what I'm saying? But it's like the little guys are also one of these people who is like he's a big advocate for the smaller schools,
hmm
and it wants it to be. He knows it can't be equal, but he wants it to be a better situation for HBCUs and smaller schools as well. So it's like he the HBCUs are the guys who are really getting the shaft on this because they don't have the money or the people who are going to pour back into them to get compensated for their name, image, and likeness because they just don't have the bread.
right,
And it goes back to is if we also don't have the boosters and the people to pour back into the university to make this name, image, like this thing a good thing for the HBCUs. But it also goes back again to these Power Fives beating up on these schools and still giving them pennies.
mm,
So that makes it a big situation too, because put the money into a pot, let it be divvied up, just like it's happening for these bigger schools. So
yeah.
yeah, man.
Well, I mean, if you don't have boosters that are doing that or have the ability to do that, again, we'll say this again because last week or 2 weeks ago I said the same thing. It's not
Mm-hmm.
all HBCUs. You have your Howards, you have
Mm-hmm.
your NCANTs, you have your Centrals of the world, your Morehouses, your Spelmans. You have those type of schools that have alumni that have gone on to make a pretty good amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
We're not talking about those schools, but the smaller schools, smaller HBCUs that don't have that. Where does this money come from to divvy up to put into a pot that you mentioned of?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it in the smaller schools, it's harder for them to get that pot
Mm,
big enough for them to actually compensate these players.
yep.
Um, a lot of this, to me, a lot of the pot is going to have to come from these larger schools helping
hmm
these smaller schools, but that's never going to happen because
Yep.
it's I used 2 weeks ago. I used the term power struggle, which after talking to you about it 2 weeks ago, I don't think it is a power struggle, but they're going to keep that money in their own organization to pay their own students and
hmm
to help their own university. They don't have much of a reason in these money games to pay the HBCUs or the smaller schools any more money than they already are. It's going to have to come from us taking that power and having
Mm-hmm.
somebody speak up about it like Prime is doing, and getting people on a collective journey to actually help these smaller schools. That's what it's going to have to
For
take.
sure.
And until that happens, it's always going to be uneven. It's going to be unbalanced on both sides, bro. It's always going to be that way.
For sure. And so later in that interview, I'm sorry, not later in that interview, a couple months ago, Coach Prime put out a Twitter post, and he said many things in the Twitter post, but one of the things that I took away from it is he said, "No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry." He did say this in the interview with EYL. He said they asked him, "Should college athletes be paid?" And he said, "Absolutely." But the thing
Absolutely.
is, when you start paying athletes like they're professionals, you get athletes acting like they're professionals, which it resonated with me because we talked about briefly. I mentioned Mikey signing that 8-figure deal, and this is
Mm-hmm.
not to single him out, but being that he is one of the first high school athletes to get a contract like this from a major brand,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of puts the spotlight on him as to say, okay, so now you got this money. How do you act? And we've seen it with him. I don't know if it's a little bit of jealousy or hate or just people trying to bring him back down to earth or whatever the case may be. But supposedly now he's overrated.
Right, and it's crazy because like I've been watching Mikey Williams since he was a freshman because he's been all over the place. He's an amazing basketball player,
Mm-hmm.
and the way he carries himself very well, even with this whole situation with the signing with Puma and being able to profit off of his NIL. So
Right.
it's like, but I think it's a lot of hate. I don't think he's overrated at all. But it's one of those things where it's like you get people from his peer group that feel like they're just as good,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, "Well, why Mikey? Why not me?"
Right.
It's a why not me? The younger generation is so privileged, bro. Like if
Mm-hmm.
we had something like this back in the day, I don't think we would act the way they act. Just to be honest,
Right.
but that's just my opinion. No, we
Right.
can't really say because we didn't have it.
We didn't have it. Right.
But it's like the kid is a star. He's honestly a star, and he has a lot. He has a voice in the community. He has a very big social media following.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the main reasons why Puma gave him his endorsements, because it's about future campaigns and product launches that he can actually, just like old girl, the college, the girl that you said was the highest paid college. What you say her name
Exactly.
was?
Yeah. Olivia
She's
Dunn.
Olivia Dunn, just like Olivia Dunn. She can do product launches because she has such a huge following on social media. That's the same thought process that the company has for Mikey, is to be able to use his name, image, and likeness to help Puma with future launches. So it's a good thing for Mikey, man. I big ups to him because he's handling it very, very, very well, man. I watched the Hot 97 interview with him last night, man, and he's a very well spoken and very grounded and humble young man. I fucks with Mikey for real.
Yeah, absolutely. And I watched that interview as well as the interview that he did with I Am Athlete, where
Mm-hmm.
he says that hating on him right now is a trend. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm the opposite of you. I don't really keep up with a lot of high school athletes.
I
It's
don't
just,
either. He's just one of the ones that I do keep up with, honestly.
yeah, I mean, but it's just not my thing. I know a lot of people really get into that. And I guess
Mm-hmm.
when I was a coach, a graduate assistant, I was into recruiting and keeping up on, but that was my
Mm-hmm.
job, right? I had to do it. Keeping up with football players, but I can honestly look at him and listen to him talk, and he does carry himself well. He does seem to be humble. The money has not seemed to change him
Mm-hmm.
that we know of. So I just feel like leading into the next part of what Coach Prime said in this piece is that he needs to continue to have people around him that helps him with this money and helps him
Mm-hmm.
control the mental aspect of it. And so
Mm-hmm.
Coach Prime said in that same quote, he said that the NCAA needs to allow programs to have qualified individuals to help them with these athletes that are making this money now. And he didn't really go into any dynamics of what that was, but what I took away from reading between the lines is that they need to have people that help these young men learn how to manage this amount of money that they're now getting, learn how to manage their family and their friends, also learn how to manage their mental aspect of it and how to be professionals as
Right.
well as because when you get that amount of money and at a young age or whenever you get it, whenever you get any amount of money, you have people around you that are trying to leech off of what you are, what you now came into. You have
Right.
family members that are trying to say, "You remember what I did for you back in the day? Let me get
Bruh.
this, let me get that." You have that. You have let's in college, not everybody's getting paid, so you have athletes that will be jealous of you because you made this amount of money, you have this amount of money, and make you feel less than you are, when really, your hard work just got you to be in the position to profit off of your name. So what Coach Prime was saying, and as a collective, is they need to have qualified individuals to help these athletes handle all of that as a whole, not
Mm-hmm.
just the money, but their mental, how to handle the money, and then how to handle the relationships that they have
Mm-hmm.
had in the past, that they have currently, and that they will have in the future because of what they now have um, signed to their name,
Financially,
which is that
yep,
money. Yep.
exactly. Because it's crazy. Because that actually happened to me. My dad was one of those people
Mm-hmm.
that whenever he found out that I was down in Miami
Mm-hmm.
with the Dolphins, he called my grandma immediately and was like, "Yo, tell Charles I want to talk to him." No, bro.
And when had he
Like, come
talked to
on,
you
bro.
before that?
Bruh, I've talked this just to be personal because I don't really care. I took in my entire life. I talked to my dad 3 times in my entire life. Prior to
Yeah,
that, prior to that, three
that's
times,
crazy.
and he finds out that I'm down in Miami, hopefully about to start my professional career, and
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden now he wants to hit up Grandma Bert, like, "Hey, tell Charles to give me a call." No, my boy, nah, not that I got this status, so to speak, and I'm embarking on something professionally. Now all of a sudden you want to be no, bro. We cool.
Yeah, I'm
We
cool
cool,
on
my boy.
that.
I'm cool on that. I ain't got time for it. But I'm glad that I think that's something that's going to eventually happen. What Prime was talking about is that they're going to have at least try to hire some financial advisors to help these young men manage their money, invest their money, manage the relationship, so that way they can be smarter with the way that they spend it or what they do
Mm-hmm.
with it. Because somebody like myself, I'm finally at 37 starting to realize that I need somebody to help me, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
starting to be less prideful and asking somebody for help.
Right.
So with these kids who are getting, like you said, Mikey got an 8-figure contract.
8 figures,
He's
bro.
17 years old with an 8-figure contract. He has to have somebody to help him spend that money or manage that bread and manage the relationships. Because if you don't, he can get sidetracked with a lot of shit. So
Right.
not to say because he's a very mature young man. So not to say that he's impressionable enough to fall into those traps with the people in his life and those relationships.
Mm-hmm.
But being 17, you're not grown up enough to say that I will help this person. I have this
Right.
bread. I'm going to help you. I will do this for you. And people will take advantage. People will
Right.
take advantage. So he has to have those people on his side to help him with that. So hopefully he does, because that's a lot, bro. It's a lot.
Yeah. I mean, we look at professional athletes that come from, well, I don't know. I'm not going to say I don't know his personal situation, but
Mm-hmm.
let's just say the average situation of professional athletes coming up was not the best of situations for
Right.
most of them.
For
And so
most
if
of
we
them, right.
look at those typical athletes that come into large amounts of monies that are 4 years removed from Mikey's age, in 4 years into the future, so age 22 that
Mm-hmm.
Mikey is right now, they fudge up money in decisions and relationships all the time.
All
So
the time.
we're now saying that 18 to 22 years old, these individuals can have this type of money, and expect them to know what to do with it, how to handle these situations, how to handle relationships that they've had. No, we need some individuals in place to help them learn how to do this, to help them know, all right, you got a 8-figure deal, put 20% of that, which if he got the bare minimum $10 million, put $2
Mm-hmm.
million into whatever financial instrument that you can at
Mhm.
18. And when
At
you turn
18.
30 something, if everything continues to go up like it has been, your family, like we talked about Steph last year, he
Like
ain't in
Steph.
Steph's boat,
Exactly.
but your family is straight. Then you can say, all right, listen, I have this amount of money. What you got to say?
No, it's funny you say that because on that I Am Athlete podcast, he said by the time he's 25, he wants to be a
To be a
billionaire.
billionaire.
By
You
the
know what I
time
mean?
he's 25, that's 8 years from now.
And
So
that's a
it's funny
good,
you said it about Steph. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
That you brought that up.
that's a good mindset for him to have. And yeah, in that same podcast, Brandon Marshall was like, "Yo, we weren't thinking like this,"
Won't
and that's
thinking
true.
like this.
We were not, because we were not put in these situations. We didn't
Nope.
have anybody in our ear telling us about this type of stuff. So
We
I
weren't,
commend
man.
Mikey for that, and I think the NIL deal, it's
Mm-hmm.
definitely going to get tweaked a bit here and there for the next 2 years, but I think it's definitely needed for college athletes to be able to profit off of their name, image, and likeness, because
Mm-hmm.
you think of individuals like a destroying, I don't know his real name, but he was the kicker for
Oh,
UCF
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
on YouTube. He was
Mm-hmm.
also on YouTube, and he was monetized at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And the NCAA found out about it and said he could not do that, so he quit
Mm-hmm.
playing football so he could
To
continue to monetize off of YouTube. Which,
mm-hmm.
why would you put a kid in that situation? It's not like he actually did this himself. Like, he didn't ask anybody to do this, and we all know we're on YouTube right now. We're
Mm-hmm.
trying to make money off of it.
Right.
Shit's not easy.
It's not easy at all, bro.
And
And the
and
fact that he did that and made his way to the top is because Destroyer has like 10 million subscribers, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere close to
exactly,
it. He's
yeah,
doing his thing, and I understand why he left college to take because
exactly.
people with that many followers make a lot of money. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, I think now that this this NIL rule is in place, you
Mm-hmm.
won't have that issue anymore of him not be, or players like him not being able to take advantage of their name, image, and likeness, or something of the sort that they have done outside of football to
Mm-hmm.
make money. And you just think about, and the reason I said that I think is good for females is because, or women athletes, is because typically women, especially younger women, and that are attractive, have more followers than the average male.
Agreed.
You can look at um, Bryce Young. I don't know his actual follower count on
Mm-hmm.
Instagram or TikTok, but I'm sure it's not near this Olivia Dunn that we were talking about, who has 8 million across
Yeah.
both platforms. And
Mm-hmm.
Bryce Young he won the Heisman last year. He's a pretty
Exactly.
big football player. He
Mm-hmm.
got injured this weekend, but he's a pretty big football player. So,
Right.
and like we mentioned, brands want eyes on their product. So if you
Mm-hmm.
have that many followers, and then you also are promoting a brand, you just do the math. The numbers trickle down to, if she has 8 million followers, they probably can expect at least 20,000 people
At
to
least.
at
At
least
least.
purchase that product. That's a bump, and that's a tick on the scale for them, on their payment scale. All right, and then you just think about all the athletes back in our day,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit removed from us, but that's all I can remember. Skylar Diggins, if she had this if she had the ability to take advantage of the NIL, the
Yeah, right.
Gonzalez twins, Candace Parker. I'm saying a lot of basketball players. That's because all I can think of. But all of these people,
Yeah,
all of these individuals had these followers. If they had the NIL in place, man,
bro.
listen,
Listen, bro, because them Gonzalez twins, bro, that Dylan, whew, she's
yeah.
something serious.
So
But either way, but no, but Mikey has 3.7 million subscribers, and Bryce Young has 226K.
you
So
see what I'm
Bryce Young
saying?
has neither one of both of them together have nowhere close to
Nowhere close to
Olivia.
what she has. So I
Mm-hmm.
think this now opens up an avenue for women who have not gotten the respect that they should after collegiate sports.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we
It
can
could
get
definitely be
into that
amazing for them.
another
Yeah.
week, but it could be for the select few. It could be good for them to take advantage of this. But yeah, I think the NIL is ultimately good for the sport.
It
It
is.
will need some tweaking, but um, we know what Coach Prom is talking about with the boosters. They need to remove that, but once they get it out the way, I think it'll be good for the sport,
It
or
definitely will.
for college in general.
And the good thing about Mikey too, and just to get my final thoughts on it, the good thing about Mikey too is that the new laws don't hinder him from being able to go to college, which is
Right.
really, really good if he chooses to go that route after he graduates next year. The only thing is that if he does go to school and that school is sponsored by a brand that's not Puma, that could cause a problem. But if he does choose to go that path, him making this money off of his NIL doesn't hinder him from being eligible to go to college, which is a really, really good thing as far as the new law is concerned. So
Yeah,
that's
that's
really,
good.
really cool.
So
Yeah,
so
man.
hopefully they tweak that and get everything squared away to where the boosters can't have too much effect. I mean, that's been going on for the longest. It's
For
just been,
years, man. Yeah.
rumors. It's been
Mm-hmm.
rumored to be going on for the longest. It's just now it has a new wrapper on it
Mm-hmm.
to where they can find
Actually
loopholes
do it.
to
Yeah.
do it. Yeah.
Facts. So you're right.
All right. So we now move on to a topic that's near and dear to Sticks. I
Mm-hmm.
just found out, and that's Tua Tagovailoa and his injury that he suffered in Thursday night's game again. Well, his second injury that he's had with playing football Thursday night when he played the Bengals. So um, here's what we absolutely know about Tua Tagovailoa. Last week, the Miami Dolphins were playing the Buffalo Bills.
Mm-hmm.
In the first half, Tua Tagovailoa, he got hit where he was slammed to the ground and his head appeared to slam against the ground. He tried to get up and he stumbled a bit, shook his head, took a couple steps, and fell again.
Mm-hmm.
He was removed from the game briefly where he was checked out and ultimately cleared to play in the second half.
Mm-hmm.
4 days later, Tua Tagovailoa is starting for the Miami Dolphins against the Cincinnati
Cincinnati Bengals.
Bengals on
Mm-hmm.
Thursday night. He again gets slammed to the ground, but this time it wasn't as pretty for him. He was stuck or frozen from an apparent head banging against the ground, and which ultimately he was carted off the field. Six, I got a couple questions for you about this, man.
What's up, big dog? What you got?
One, who do you think is responsible for this situation? And we can break it down and talk about them in different parts. But who do you think is responsible for this ultimately? Should there be any other suspensions or dismissals? Because we now know that the doctor that checked him out on the field for the Buffalo Bills has been fired or dismissed.
Fired.
And then how can this be prevented in the future?
So, yeah, man, it was ugly Thursday night for Tua, man. And first of all, on Sunday against the Bills, he should not have been allowed to come back in that game.
Absolutely.
Now, the fact that of course, him stumbling and holding his head, that was automatically a defining moment to say that this man has a concussion.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why he had to go in the locker room and go through protocol.
Right.
So to play the blame game, or who's involved and who should be blamed for this, there's four people.
Mm-hmm.
The team doctor,
Okay.
the independent doctor, head coach, and Tua.
Oh, you went there. Yes.
Head coach and
okay,
Tua.
Let's get it. Yes.
So whenever he went back into the locker room, he has to. So first of all, talk about Tua. Of course, Tua is an athlete. I'm an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
I've had concussions in my day. You know what I'm saying? No, there's not many athletes that want to be hurt.
Right.
A lot of athletes, me included, when I was playing, I had a really bad shoulder injury. I had a grade 5 separation. If you know anything about separations, and most people don't, but grade 5 is the worst that you can get in a separation. I went up for a touchdown, caught a touchdown, fell on my shoulder, DB fell on top of me, separated. Right? I knew something was wrong immediately. But I played it off. My arm dangling, going back to the sideline, the doctor puts his hand under my shoulder pads and immediately snatches away like, oh! Like my shoulder bone, my clavicle was out of my skin. So they took my shoulder pads off, put it back together, and I was out for the rest of that game against St. Augustine's back in the day.
Okay.
Me, after that game that night, Saturday night, I'm thinking to myself, my season could be over. And I'm a senior at the time. I don't
Mhm.
want to be hurt. So every Sunday we had to go to the training room and get checked out for any injuries, any new injuries, and get treatment. This like the third. I go in there like, hey, I'm good. My arm is straight. You know what I'm saying? I can
Yep.
go. Da-da-da-da. Knowing good and damn well my arm is fucked up.
Mhm.
So since I played it off so well, the only thing that the doctors did moving forward, because that was the fourth game of the season, we still had 8 left. So the only
Right.
thing the doctors did was they created this hard turtle shell that had padding underneath it, but it had a really hard surface on top. They
Mhm.
put it on my shoulder, strapped that motherfucker down, put my shoulder pads on top of that, and gave me cortisone shots at halftime, well, at the beginning of the game, at halftime for 8 games straight. Because I didn't
Mm.
want to not play.
Right.
I didn't want to not play. The
Yeah.
pain after those games that I felt in my arm was crazy. Because my arm was fucked up.
That's
I needed surgery.
that's
You
a.
know what I'm
I
saying?
mean, it's the
So that's
same.
the
It's
blame on Tua. That's the blame on Tua because I know that he was in the locker room like, nah, I'm straight. I'm straight. I can play. I can play. I can play. And then got the nerve to blame him stumbling on back and ankle injuries. No, bruh.
yeah. Yeah. I
You
mean,
were concussed, bro.
right. And I appreciate you sharing that experience. It's a bit different than a head injury, especially in
Agreed.
today's climate in
Agreed.
professional sports, where they're so cognizant of somebody having a head injury and trying to protect that
Or at
person
least or
and the
so we
sport of
thought.
football. Right. So we thought, and the sport of football. But
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely I see the parallels are definitely there. Like you mentioned, no player wants to be hurt. They're always going to say they're good, even when they know they're not good, especially in the heat of battle.
Mm-hmm.
They want to be out there with their team, if they
With their
put
boys, with
in the
their
work
brothers. Yep.
with their boys, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm with you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you on this. I didn't think you were going
Yeah.
to say Tua,
Of
but
course. Yeah.
I'm with you. I think that definitely the doctor or doctors are responsible for this. The
Responsible for
coaching
ultimately,
staff,
yes. Right.
yeah, right. The coaching staff is responsible for this, and Tua and his teammates are responsible for this. Not to the extent that the doctor and then the coaches are, because the
Mm-hmm.
doctors are the ones, whether a player says they're fine or not, they have to use their medical know-how and their skills that they've learned in school to determine if somebody is ultimately good or not. And
Mm-hmm.
then I can't blame the coaches as much as the medical staff, because they only
Mm-hmm.
go off of what the medical staff
Medical
tells them,
staff
but
says exactly.
they are responsible as well, because just like everybody else, they saw that man being woozy and shaky when he got up from that
Mm-hmm.
hit.
We
So
saw that.
they saw that. So they have to use their better judgment and not allow him to go back into the game. Wins and losses aside, we're talking about a person. We're talking about a person here. And the coach,
Mm-hmm.
while I do think he's remorseful, he has to have some accountability in this
Yeah.
situation as well.
Yeah, because he said Monday after the game on Sunday was that if there was any red flag that popped up during the evaluation with the coach and the unaffiliated the UNC, the unaffiliated neurological consultant, that's what that stands for. If there was
Hmm.
any red flag that they saw in that locker room, he would not have went back in that game, and that they went above and beyond to ensure that Tua was good to go to come back for that second half.
I can't believe that.
I can't believe it either because, and this is the thought that I had initially as soon as he came back in the game and they made that statement on Monday. The thought that I had was they knew that they had a game on Thursday, right?
Yes,
So if he had to go through protocol, that's a 5-step, 5-day phase that you have to go through. Tua would have missed that Thursday game if he had to go through protocol. So I
yes.
think they knew that that game was coming up on Thursday. They didn't want to lose Tua. Tua is a great
They didn't
talent.
want to.
Of course, he's
Right.
a
They didn't
great
want to put
quarterback.
him. Right.
Nope.
Right.
They didn't want to put him through protocol, that 5-step
Right.
protocol phase, and know that he was probably going to miss Thursday's game.
And so that's a good point, because I feel how does he not even go into protocol? Um, that's a good point, man, because I wonder if they did have a Sunday game rather than a Thursday game, would they have at least put him in protocol
I
so
think
that
they
he
probably
can
would
get
have.
the constant monitoring and evaluation, rather than saying, "Oh shoot, we got a game third," and we don't know what was said
We
or
don't know
done in the
exactly.
locker room,
That's just speculation
but
by me.
but that's a good point, because if it's a 5-day protocol, at least they played on
Mm-hmm.
Sunday, it's 4 days removed from Sunday to play on Thursday. He definitely would have missed a game, not even had a chance to play because he's still in
Mhm.
protocol. He wouldn't have
He's
been able to
still in
get
protocol.
evaluated. So that's a good point. I didn't think of that. I did
So
not think of that at
now,
all.
now, of course, they didn't plan on him getting another concussion on Thursday. Of course, they didn't plan on that, right?
Yeah. Nobody
But
does.
now that concussion that he had, he wasn't healed from.
Yeah.
So now he gets slammed to the ground, which, to be honest, whenever I saw the tackle against the Bengals on Thursday, it wasn't anything that hasn't happened to me before that I haven't gotten a concussion from. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because when he got tackled, he got sacked, his back hit first and then his head hit the ground. That's happened to
Yeah,
me before. And I
but
haven't
if
been
your
concussed.
brain is swollen from another concussion, the
Exactly.
smallest hit of that nature is gonna like put
That's
him in
the
the
point I
position
was
that he was
making.
in. Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
the point I was gonna make, is that if he would have been in protocol, that second concussion, first of all, he wouldn't have been able to play, but that second
Right.
concussion would have never happened to where he's in a fencing response where his body's locked up. And
Yep.
now he has to be carted off and spend the rest of the night in the hospital because y'all were negligent in the fact that he had a concussion initially. So
Right.
now he's going to go through protocol now because why? They don't play today. They don't play
Right.
for another 11 days. So he can
Yep.
go through those 5 days of protocol, not practice, and go through protocol safely, and then come out 6 days removed to be able to practice and get ready for next Sunday, which is the 9th.
Yep. Yep.
So I think, honestly, that him going back in the game on Sunday and that response on Monday was planned because they knew they had a game on Thursday. They wanted him to play, and they knew they
I
weren't
did
going to have
not think
another
of that.
game until 11 days later. That's
I did not
probably
think
why
of
that
that.
happened. Because, bro, like, phase 1 is rest. Phase 2 is gradual progress towards exercise. Phase 3 is increased exercise, but only cardio. Phase
Mm-hmm.
4 is the player can do non-contact activities. And phase 5 is the physician has to clear him before he
Mm.
can do physical activity. So if he's
Yep.
not cleared after that 5th phase, he has to go through phase 5 again.
I got you.
You see what I'm saying? So they didn't want him to miss Thursday, which is why they put him back in the game Sunday and released that statement on Monday. But now everybody is coming to it to where they're like, okay, the NFLPA is now in this shit now because it's one of their brothers. The Players
Mm-hmm.
Association, they try their hardest to take care of the players.
Yep.
And now that UNC has been dismissed now or fired because the NPA was like, yo, they're not taking care of our brother.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way that they didn't see that hit on Sunday and say, okay, Tua does not need to come back in this game.
So do you
Even
think
if it,
any?
go ahead,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I'm sorry. No, no. Go ahead.
Now, even if they didn't put him through protocol, they at least should have took the proper steps to say, okay, he's not he has a head injury, so we
Mm-hmm.
have to at least say he's not coming back in this game, and then we'll reevaluate tomorrow and see and reassess if he needs to go through protocol. That's what they at least should have done on Sunday,
Right.
but they
Right.
didn't do that. So now they're like, they're not taking care of our brother. We got to get him out of here.
So now with all the heat on this situation, and we again, like I mentioned earlier, we know that, and you mentioned as well, we know that neurological doctor
Mm-hmm.
was dismissed. You think anybody else needs to be dismissed, suspended, fined in this situation?
Um, I would say I think he really is because the relationship between the UNC and the team doctor is that the team doctor is supposed to assess the player because he knows the player. He sees the player every single day. So if anything in his personality is different, he can give the UNC that insight like, hey, I understand that you don't know Tua, but I know him and he don't seem right now. He's not himself. The
Mm-hmm.
UNC is there to say, okay, he's there to do additional steps to say, okay, he does have this brain trauma. He's showing a lot of different. He's showing a lot of side effects from a concussion. They're supposed to work together.
Yep.
So if anybody else needs to be either fired or fined, it's the team doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Tua went through what he went through. He don't need no other repercussions.
Right.
But
Right. Right.
and excuse me. And Coach McDaniel, like you said earlier, he's only going off what the doctors say. So if anybody else needs to be reprimanded, it needs to be the team doctor. They already got the UNC up out of there. The team doctor needs
Yep.
to take some responsibility for what happened to it as well, I believe.
So I'm a bit different than you on this.
What you
I
think?
think, I think, along with your thoughts, I think the team doctor needs to be suspended, at least a game, maybe even
Mm-hmm.
fined.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think the coach needs to be.
You think Mr. McDaniel needs to be fined as well?
Suspended, or yeah, at least fined for a game because we look at let's take what happened Thursday out of the scenario, and let's just say Tua. That's a bad example. Let's say Martrez Burfitt, and that's his name, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
So let's use his situation where he had that hit
Antonio Brown.
on Antonio Brown, which we also can talk about that down the line
for
as
sure.
well. He was suspended. He was fined for negligence on the field, right? And
True.
that's something that, I mean, we don't know what his true intent was. It looked like he intended to do that. Hold on. It looked like he intended to do that. But there are players that do not intend to do that, and they get fined, right? They get fined for it. So I'm saying for targeting, right? So, and that's $25,000 out of their check in most cases.
Exactly.
So what I'm saying is, if you're not going to suspend players, you need to hold the parties off the field in these scenarios that Tua just had. You need to hold them just as accountable as you holding the players accountable. Find their ass, and then you'll start to clean this stuff up to where they're gonna take a second guess. Like, well, hold on, this is money coming out of my pocket now. Let's make sure that he's good before he goes back out there. Because if that happens, it's all, when you want somebody to do what you need them to do, you always mess with a paycheck.
Agreed.
Everybody knows that.
Agreed.
Everybody knows that. So when you mess with somebody's money, you get their attention, and
for sure,
that's how I think this is fixed moving forward. Is you start finding the personnel off the field that is in charge of this, just like you do the personnel on the field.
Agreed. I agree with you. I agree with you to a certain extent on that. So going back to the Vontaze Burfict thing, the targeting rule was created somewhat because of Vontaze, because he had a history of targeting people. He had a history of doing that. So whenever he got fined, whenever he hit Antonio Brown, it was because he had a long history of these type of hits.
Okay.
So that's why he was fine. I think if it was the first offense, he wouldn't have been fine. Honestly, if he was the first offense, it wouldn't have been fine.
But after that rule was made, for at least for a couple of years, individuals were fined for,
and they're still being fined. Yeah,
intent to do it or not, they were being fined.
Intent to harm, they're being fined. I agree.
Right.
I agree.
So
well,
what I'm saying,
or not, they're being fined. Correct.
Exactly. So what I'm saying is, at least for some years, if the NFL really wants to get this in line, get this in check, as they have been trying to do with concussions for the last 10 years, and trying to save the game of football, because it was dying for a bit, because parents didn't want their kids playing football because of the threat of concussion and ruin their lives down the line, which that is a real thing. But football isn't the only sport. Yeah, football isn't the only sport that has that issue. If they want to get this in check, they need to start doing that. And so the question then comes is, okay, well, if the NFL does it, if the NFL puts this in place, how does the leagues underneath the NFL, so college and high school sports, put that into place? That I don't have the answer to, but I know the NFL, they make a certain amount of dollars. If you start taking their money, it makes them really take a look at what they're doing and who they're clearing and who they're not clearing, and before they let people out on the field.
For sure. And I mean, just to kind of get my final thoughts on it, these two injuries call for serious concern for Tua's future, because CTE, which is chronic traumatic, the last word I can't really pronounce it, encephalopathy. I can't pronounce it, but
I know.
CTE. That joint is scary, because we've had major, like, rest in peace, Junior Seau. He had CTE. He took his life because of it. And we talked about Luke Kuechly in the back in the first episode when we're talking about Tua. Matt Tateo. He ended his career early because of concussions.
Right.
He was an amazing linebacker for the Panthers and was crying in his retirement speech because he didn't want to leave, but he felt
But he
like it
had
was the
to.
best thing for his family because of the head trauma that he was getting, and he was afraid of CTE. CTE has people like basically handicapped now because of the
Mm-hmm.
head trauma and the enlarging of the brain, and they can't function. They forget things. It's like early onset dementia,
Mm-hmm.
kind of sort of with CTE. So, and we just like you touched on Antonio Brown. This dude, ever since that hit from Vontez Burfict,
Right.
been bugging out,
Right.
been doing wild shit, and like
Right.
because I pray for Tua because hopefully these things don't continue to happen to him. Of course, we don't wish it upon him, but the negligence that the coaches, the doctors, and even himself had with this
Mm-hmm.
injury is crazy. Like it could cause some concern for his future, man, because these head injuries ain't nothing to play with, man. Ain't nothing to play with.
So
Nothing to play
coming
with.
from you, how does the NFL fix this? How do they fix it moving forward? Or how do they keep
They
this
just
from happening down the line?
they just have to be more careful, honestly, because it's really because you're taking the word the biggest word that these doctors are coming from. The doctors need to be more careful, number one, but they
Mm-hmm.
can't. They have to take the player's word with a grain of salt. No player is going to want to not play. No player, especially if you're a player at the level of Tua or somebody like that, a starting quarterback in the NFL. No player is going to want to feel like they let their brother down on the field.
Mm-hmm.
No player is going to want to do that. I was one of those guys. I'm pretty sure you
Yep.
might have been one of those guys too. No player.
Some people would
So
say
that
not.
some people would say no, well, coach.
I was always hurt. Yeah, I was always hurt, man.
But man, you're my brother. I wanted you to be healthy regardless of
Yeah,
anything
yeah,
else.
yeah, yeah. You're right.
But it's like the doctors can't take the doctors have to be a lot more mindful of these injuries and keep these players off the field regardless of what they say. They're
Right.
always going to want to play. They're never going to want to sit out. So the doctors have to be a lot more mindful and have to be a lot more careful in these situations, and they have to take the power from the player and the coaches and say he's not well. They have to do that. If they don't, these situations are always going to keep occurring because the coaches want the player out there, and the player wants to be out there.
Mm-hmm.
If the doctors don't take control and take the reins of these situations, these things are always going to happen, man. And this has been an ongoing. What year did that Will Smith movie come out about CTE? You remember?
Ooh,
It
it
had
was
to
like
be over a decade ago at this point, right?
2007, 2012.
I'm about to go look it up. Hold on, because this was and the problem had been before this
2015.
concussion came out in 2015, 7 years ago, and the problem has been going on well before this.
Mm-hmm.
Well before this, bro. Like Junior Seau retired over a decade ago,
Yep.
and he was having issues with CTE. Like there's so many players have retired early. There was I can't remember his name for nothing in this world, but he left the NFL after his third year because he was afraid of CTE.
His rookie year. I know you're talking about. I don't remember his
Oh,
name either.
it was
It was
his
well.
rookie year.
We might be talking about. We might be talking about a different
I think we
person,
might be talking about the same
but
person. Was he
it
a
was a
fullback or a
player.
linebacker?
Yes,
Yeah,
fullback.
there you go. Mm-hmm.
So okay, yeah. So he left after his rookie year.
His rookie year. Okay, got you.
Yeah,
Because he
yeah.
was
I'm
afraid
gonna
of
look his name up now. I can't
concussions.
remember. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I mean, this it's a scary thing, man, because I've had concussions in my life. I've been knocked
Mm-hmm.
out before,
Mm-hmm.
and the crazy thing is whenever when me and D'Lo were playing football, the CTE situation wasn't as followed or studied as much. So whenever
Right.
I got knocked out, I played the next Saturday and probably
Right.
shouldn't have.
Right. But the thing
So
is, you
it's
play
like
the next Saturday. That's a whole week away.
that's a whole
He
week away.
played
True,
4 days
true.
after.
But if there was a protocol and I didn't pass that fifth phase, I probably
Right.
could have
You
played
wouldn't
the
have
following
played.
Saturday.
Right.
But
Exactly.
there was
Exactly.
no protocol back in the day. None. They were
Right.
like, "Hey, you good? Shake your head a little
Right.
bit, put some
Yeah.
dirt on it, rub some castor
One,
oil on
two.
it. You
How many?
good? How many fingers I got? Is
Right.
you said four, but I only got up two. You good? Don't worry about it. Don't worry
Yeah.
about it. You
Yeah.
straight.
You're all
They
right.
just let you go.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because but a lot of that comes from the player too. A
That
lot
was
of that comes from the player.
education
A lot of
back
that
then
came
too,
from me.
though.
Facts, facts. So,
Yeah.
but a lot of
Just
that came from
educated.
me just wanting to be out there. I didn't want to let my boys down. I didn't want to let my brothers down. So
Right.
like I said, the doctors have to take the reins on this and say, he's not well, coach. Tua, you're not
Mm-hmm.
good, bro. I don't care what you say. You're not well. You can't go back in this game. We're holding you out for the
Right.
rest of this game.
Right.
The doctors have to take the reins, and if they do, things will get better. They have to be a
Yep.
little bit more mindful of these situations. But until then, these two situations gonna keep happening.
Yeah. Yeah. I think football is a violent sport. Injuries will happen.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to make sure that we're taking care of those players that have these type of head injuries because we all love football, and but if we continue to have parties that neglect to treat these players how they should be treated after
Mm-hmm.
having a head injury, then we're going to see, as I mentioned earlier, the sport die because parents are not
Agreed.
going to allow their kids to play football thinking of their future, whether the kid wants to play it or not. And so until
Agreed.
we can get a grasp on how to handle this, or until the NFL gets a grasp on how to handle this, because they're the ones that we all watch on Sundays, then we're just gonna watch the sport die.
Yeah, crazy. And it is funny just to make this comment. I know you watched the Hot 97 with Mikey Williams. Mikey said basketball
Hmm.
wasn't even his first sport, football was. But he was like,
Football
going to the
was.
NFL. He said, go to the NFL is crazy. I would never, he
Yep.
said, I would never go to the NFL because it's so violent, right? He said, I would never
He
do it.
he also said that, and we're done. He
Yeah.
also said that basketball players were smarter than football players because football players all they have to use is their athleticism. You could easily say the same thing for basketball.
Facts. Easily.
Because
I didn't hear him
I
say
mean,
that. I must have just,
listen,
I didn't.
we love LeBron, and LeBron is probably one of the, according to what people around the league say, he's probably one of the highest IQ players.
In
But
NBA history.
his athleticism definitely helps him a
It
ton.
helps him.
You know
What?
what I mean?
Man,
So,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, we went off topic with that last part as far as
Yeah.
concluding it with concussions, but yeah, I mean, hey, Mikey, I hope you watched this, man. You was wrong for that.
You was wrong for that, my boy. I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, so that concludes another episode of Pardon My Wisdom, episode 5. Man, we are a month in this thing.
Five of them
Woo!
things, man. Five of
Yeah,
them
and
things.
as always, Sticks, man, I'll wrap this up by saying I appreciate you, dog. I always appreciate your perspective on the topics that we talk about. And as we continue to grow, I hope that we continue to have these conversations just as we're having them now and entertain the people with topics that they want to hear us talk about.
For sure, man. It's always love, man. I love you, man. And we're gonna keep this thing rolling for the people and for number one for ourselves, man, because it gives us an opportunity to keep in touch with each other, man. And I love that.
For
You know what I'm
sure.
saying? I love that the
Yep.
podcast is giving us an avenue to just keep the relationship strong between us, keep the brotherhood strong between us, man. And I appreciate you for, like I said, like you said, for your insight on the topics, as well as going on this journey with me, man. I appreciate you.
Yeah. Yeah, man. All right. So with that being said, we'll catch y'all next time.
Peace. Good.